Hello, I'm back. I'm your house friend. I will always be your house friend, your house sister, your house daughter. I'm in the house. Okay, I'm in the house. It's where I belong. I just like to talk about people in the home, technologies, how we interact with them, and different topics like that. So if you're a fan, stay with me and be my house friend. Today we're on Reddit again, and this one is in the forum roommate problems once again. I mentioned in my last video, I've had different living situations, lived with different roommates, some I didn't know beforehand, some I did know beforehand, and all along the way I took notes and I would write down the issues in efforts to try to prevent problems and solve problems in the most harmonious way in that particular living situation. I like to look into problems so that we can kind of solve these problems before they continue to occur, or at least talk about these things before they happen. Here on Kaylee's household, we are a house of peace and a house of order, and part of being in order is preventing problems and saving time. This user writes, I think my roommate let people stay in my room and bed in our shared apartment while I was gone for the summer. This is tricky. User writes, I asked her if she let anyone since when I came back after 3 months, there were some items that were not mine inside my room and some of my furniture was moved. She hasn't responded yet, but what do I do in this situation? Nothing is missing that I know of right now, but I'm still uncomfortable with the idea that random people I don't know were touching my stuff. Straight face emoji. So in this day and age where we are in shared living spaces, but we are traveling, a lot of us are traveling and to different places for our jobs, working remote, living away from our families or our original communities. This user sounds like a student where she was gone for 3 months, so she was gone for the summer, but I'm assuming that she was paying rent while she was gone for this room. Now, I've been in a similar situation where when I was house sitting, I would leave for periods of time. My room's just sitting there as a room, and I would joke with my roommate and be like, hey, if you want to rent it out, we can split the profits, you know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like a serious, kind of half serious joke where I'm like, hey, look, I see that I'm renting out this room, but I also notice that I'm traveling and rent out rooms, for a night or two, things like that, and lock up your stuff. Whatever the case, this user sounds like her roommate was letting friends pretty much stay over, not really renting it out. That just sounds like she had friends come over and stay, but maybe she did rent it out. Hey, maybe she was getting the bag. I don't know. I wouldn't rule it past anybody. This is definitely a boundaries problem. Yeah, not good. I feel like you and your roommate, if you knew that you were going away for 3 months, okay, this should have been definitely talked about, even in a joking manner. I think people are scared to have these conversations because they just feel so uncomfortable. But half the time, if we smile and joke about it, it makes it light and airy. And even though it's a serious, discussion, and it kind of just smooths away, and we're able to talk about boundaries in a fair way. And so I feel like there's two parts to this situation, to this answer. I do think that you should have had a discussion about this with your roommate before you left for 3 months. Say, hey, do you plan on having visitors over while I'm gone? I think that should have been your responsibility to ask that. I do think that because it's your space, but it's also a shared space. So number one, before you left for 3 months, have that conversation and say, hey, are you planning to have company over this summer? Or, just bring it up casually, and then just be like, hey, did you need my room, or were you wanting them to stay in my room? Just dig a little bit, and just get there, because then it's kind of like now you're in a situation where you never talked about it. This is where my overthinking has really benefited me, honestly, because I think it really does save time if you see bridges before you have to cross them. Now, while I do believe some problems are best approached when they actually happen, there are some problems that you can say, hey, we will cross that bridge when we get to it. You know what I mean? because it's out of your control. But certain things I do believe are in your control, and communicating things in the household to the people that you live with are in your control, and it's a form of respect. And foresight is a really great quality to have when it comes to household communications. And the Bible talks about foresight in Hebrews 12:15. It says, "Exercise foresight and be on the watch to look after one another, to see that no one falls back from and fails to secure God's grace, in order that no root of resentment, rancor, bitterness, hatred, shoots forth and causes trouble and bitter torment, and that the many become contaminated and defiled by it." In the home, this is so important, and this relates to scheduling when it comes to knowing each other's schedules and just being respectful and saying, hey, I'm traveling this week and you're traveling this week, okay, and understanding what may occur while that your partner or your roommates or your family member is away, or while you're away, certain things that y'all need to take care of. We need to watch over our households in this way, in exercising foresight and being on the watch. So exercise foresight and approached this conversation before you left for 3 months with your roommate. Are you throwing any parties? You know what I'm saying? Like, the second part of this is your roommate should have definitely not crossed your boundaries. And if she was going to have a friend or company or family or whoever came in your room and stayed in your room or looked around or whatever they did, even if it was like the cable guy, you know what I mean? Roommate should have communicated that to you. Like, these are respectful, mature communications that show that you are looking after one another in the home. And looking after one another in the home and having these clear communications about boundaries and spaces allows for more peace and harmony in the home. Make sure that no resentment is building up, no bitterness and things like that, because this is what spills into society. When we are unhappy in the home or unsettled in the home in some way, shape, or form. That is my second part of that answer, is that your friend should have definitely texted you and said, hey, I got a friend coming over, or a family member, they need to sleep in your room. Is that cool? Whatever. They didn't communicate that to you at all, and that is a complete violation of boundaries. Now, is it forgivable as long as nothing is missing? Yes, given that, there's no lice or bugs or something that would like affect your belongings and then affect your health type of thing. As long as y'all have that conversation and it doesn't happen again, love that for you. But spiritually, I hate that for you. I hate the feeling of like your space being violated. You don't know if it was a man in your bed. You don't know, like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, the bed is very sacred. So I totally get feeling violated. You were violated. That is a violation, and it should be treated as such and not happen again. Definitely take note that your roommate crosses boundaries and doesn't communicate that they're going to. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like levels of crossing boundaries. Like the first level, the terrible level is like they cross your boundaries, they don't communicate it. This is kind of that, right? And then the next level is they cross your boundaries and then they tell you afterwards, like, I used to do that. I was guilty of that. Like, I would, with my sister, I would do that. Like, I would, we all do this with our sisters. Like, you take a skirt, or you take some, piece of clothing, and then you text them after, and it's like, hey, I took this, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's kind of like, you're still crossing boundaries, but at least you're like communicating it, but you're doing it after the fact instead of before the fact. That's like, level before the higher levels. And then we get into the wholesome ground space where you're like, okay, let's text them before I'm going into their room and looking at their shoes or looking at their clothes. Like, so you can text, that's like, healthy boundary level, like lower, you're getting in the healthy space now. You're like communicating and you're waiting and you're respecting and, you're like, okay, I can live without this thing, whatever. And then the first level, the optimum healthy level of boundaries in a home would be to communicate beforehand and to have foresight as the Bible tells us to have. And how would you feel about X? You know, that's a way to kind of gauge how to do things. Like, hey, how would you feel about if you came home and I organized the kitchen? These are questions that I've asked as I've matured and become a little bit more healthy with my boundaries and the people that I live with. I don't know if I would go as far as cameras, but maybe, you know, or just kind of look elsewhere if your lease is going to be up soon, because this is definitely a violation and I don't love that for you. But hey, it's a learning experience, and everything in the home is a learning experience, and that's why I'm here, and that's why you're watching Kaylee's Household. And I'm Kaylee, and thank you for listening today, and I'll see you on the next one. God bless you. Peace be with you and in your home.